The life spirit flame and the turtle spiritual earth flame were quickly turned into two clusters of different colored flames in Xiao Yan's hands. There was a little resistance being vaguely emitted. After all, the two types of heavenly flames already had their respective owners. Even though their owners did not resist, their instincts would still pose some resistance. Moreover, this was the case despite Xiao Yan having transformed into possessing a heavenly flame constitution. If an ordinary person was to hold them, it was likely that they would have already exploded instead of acting in such a docile manner. Xiao Yan frowned slightly as he detected the slight resistance being emitted from the two clusters of essence flames. He flicked his finger. A wisp of pink flame was extended from his finger, after which it wrapped the two clusters of essence heavenly flames. Immediately, the fire glow around the two clusters of heavenly flames showed a slight sign of stiffening. Even though these two heavenly flames did not possess any intelligence, they were still being frightened to the point of not daring to move in the face of the frightening, purifying demonic lotus flames, purifying strength. Xiao Yin sighed in relief within his heart after seeing the two clusters of essence, heavenly flames becoming quiet. He curled his hand and 6 flames were once again formed. Xiao Yin flicked his finger while these 6 flames were slowly merging. The life spirit flame and turtle spiritual earth flame were shot into them. Bang bang! The flame, which was quietly being gathered, emitted a low and deep sound following the entry of these two heavenly flames. Waves after waves of frightening energy wildly whistled from within. It actually showed a vague sign of being about to explode. Xiao Yan's expression became a little grave as he sensed the change within the flame. Even though he currently possessed the heavenly flame spirit constitution of little e, he was indeed a little too unfamiliar with these two heavenly flames. There was naturally some difficulty in merging them. However, this did not cause Xiao Yan to panic. His perfect heavenly state spiritual strength poured into the flame like floodwater. Immediately, the wild and violent nature within became like a large tank of cold water being added to boiling water. It immediately became quiet. Immediately, the wild violence scattered. The fire once again agglomerated under Xiao Yan's control. At the same time, the dou qi within Xiao Yan's body continuously surged into the flame like floodwater. The addition of 2 types of heavenly flames had increased Xiao Yan's dou qi exhaustion many times over. An exhaustion of that extent was something that even the current Xiao Yan had difficulty supporting. With an increasing amount of dou qi being poured into the flame, layers after layers of seemingly real ripples began to be formed within it. A partial lotus shape had vaguely appeared with the flame. A kind of fluctuation that frightened even Xiao Yin quietly spread from it. The might of an angry Buddha lotus flame being formed from 8 types of heavenly flames could really be described as having the ability to destroy the world. Hun Yan, who had been held back by the fearless northern king, had also detected the frightening fluctuation as it spread. His expression finally experienced a change as he looked at Xiao Yin in a grave manner. Those eyes of his were focused on the 8-colored flame on Xiao Yan's hands. His eyes involuntarily twitched. Even he could sense a danger from that force. This brat is indeed extremely strange. He is merely a 5-star dou sheng, yet he is able to unleash such a frightening attack. A cold glint flashed within Hun Yan's eyes. He suddenly slammed his palm onto the body of the northern king. The sudden increase in his strength directly caused the chest of the northern king to sink a little. If it was not because it was a puppet, this palm would have already taken his life. Even though this was the case, that ferocious palm wind still caused the northern king to fly back by 1,000 feet. After which, Hun Yan's body moved and directly pounced onto Xiao Yan. "Stop him!" Yao Lao's expression changed upon seeing this. He let out a cold cry, and a dou qi pillar shot out. However, such an attack was completely ignored by Hun Yan. It was scattered with the wave of his sleeve. Red poison palm. Old man Shin Nong had a grave expression after seeing that the obstruction was futile. His body rushed forward and his hands swiftly swelled. It also turned bright red in color. An unusual phenomenon was vaguely emitted from it as it smashed towards Hun Yin. Humph! Faced with old man Shin Nong, Hun Yin could only let out a cold snort. He flipped and lifted his hand. Those 5 fingers became charred black. He randomly slammed his hand forward and collided with the bright red palm wind of old man Shin Nong. Grug! The collision between the two emitted an unusual fragrance. Immediately, old man Shin Nong's expression paled. A mouthful of fresh blood was spat out. His body also miserably fly backwards. Clearly, he had suffered a big loss upon contact. A group of little shrimps actually dares to try and escape from the hands of my Hun clan. In your dreams. Hun Yin laughed coldly after he defeated old man Shin Nong with a strike from his palm. His body flashed, and he appeared in front of Xiao Yin. His black fingers were just like the fingers of a death god as they grabbed towards Xiao Yin with lightning-like speed. Xiao Yan's eyes stared intently at Hun Yan's claw wind. The latter would land on his body in an instant. The sharp wind easily tore through the Do Qi defense on Xiao Yan's body, after which it heavily landed on his body. Thud thud. The black fingers cut across, bringing with it some blood and sparks. The clothes in front of Xiao Yan's chest had directly turned into dust. A layer of tough dragon scale covered his body. However, 5 deep wounds had already appeared on the dragon scale at this moment. Fresh blood continued to flow out from his wound. If it was not because of the protection from the Dragon Phoenix ancient armor, it was likely that Xiao Yan's stomach would have been torn apart by this strike. Xiao Yan's face turned pale after suffering this heavy blow. Hun Yan's claw wind had directly sent him flying backwards. However, an icy cold smile flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes as he flew backwards. His mouth widened slightly. Explode! Hun Yan's eyes suddenly shrunk after the soft voice was emitted. His sight stilled at the spot a couple of centimeters from him. There was a palm-sized fire lotus slowly rotating there. A brilliant 8-colored fire lotus was rotating at that spot. It appeared incomparably beautiful. Hun Yan's expression changed drastically as he looked at the fire lotus, which was in close proximity. Before he could react, however, a bright luster had erupted from within the fire lotus. Countless of light pillar containing an extermination force erupted. They shot out from the fire lotus in a densely packed manner. Any person struck by the fire lotus would be turned into ashes almost immediately. From the looks of it, it was fortunate that Xiao Yin had borrowed Hun Yan's strength and flew backwards. Otherwise, it was likely that he would be shot by these extermination light pillars. Hun Yin was the first to be struck. His body was penetrated by many light pillars. However, it did not turn into dust at this moment. Monstrous Do Qi continued to surge from within his body as it tried its best to block the erosion of the extermination force. However, the fire lotus, which had been merged from 8 types of heavenly flames, was not simple. An extermination like fire lotus was emitted from within the fire lotus after the light pillar shot out. The bright light in the sky appeared just like a bright sun. Intense piercing light had basically covered the entire Yao realm. Bang! An indescribable extermination like force swept in all directions across the sky. The mountain range below, which was already full of holes, had turned into a red ground. The terrifyingly high temperature had melted the entire mountain range. Xiao Yin grabbed Yao Lao and the others. Their bodies flew backwards as the purifying demonic lotus flame formed a huge fire barrier in front of them. Only then did the group avoid getting implicated by the attack. The extermination force lasted for quite a long time before it gradually faded. A black smoke fell from the middle. Finally, it violently landed below, smashing the ground and forming a 10,000 feet large pit. Xiao Yan's eyes looked into the distance. He could vaguely see Hun Yin within it. The latter was wrapped in a black vapor. However, his aura had become a lot weaker than before. Clearly, he had at the very least been seriously injured. Old man Shen by the side inhaled a breath of cold air. His eyes were filled with shock as he watched this scene. It was difficult for him to imagine that Xiao Yan was actually able to force an advanced 7-star Do Shang until such an extent. Hurry and leave. The space at that spot had already been torn apart by the remnant force. Xiao Yan's face was pale. The piercing pain transmitted from his chest caused his body to tremble. He swung his hand and tossed the life spirit flame and turtle spiritual earth flame towards Old Man Shen and Yao Tian as he cried out in an anxious voice. His current condition was also extremely terrible. An 8-colored fire lotus exhaustion was far more terrifying as compared to what he had imagined. Even his current self could only use it once. However, he would end up being unusually weak. A weakened person had almost no chance of surviving in this situation with danger lurking all around. Only after hearing Xiao Yan's words did everyone realize that the middle ripples from the extermination force had actually been torn apart, forming a spatial crack line that was a couple of dozen feet in size. They immediately braced their attention. Quick! Xiao Yan took out a jade bottle from his storage ring. He randomly poured the medicinal liquid inside onto the injuries on his chest and once again urged. Taking the lead, he extended the bone wings on his back and rushed into the spatial crack with lightning-like speed. Now was the best opportunity to escape. Stop them! Hun Yan's body swayed as he rose from the ground. His expression was ferocious as he roared. It was unexpected that even with his strength, he had actually been forced into such a miserable state by Xiao Yan. Bang bang! All the remaining experts from the Yao clan actually began to crazily self-destruct after seemingly having sensed that there was hope for Xiao Yan's group to escape. The waves from the explosions completely blocked those experts from the Hun clan, who wanted to free themselves to stop Xiao Yan's group. Hun Jing, who was exchanging blows with Yao Dan, had a gloomy face upon seeing this scene. Unexpectedly, that brat was even able to force back Hun Yan. However, Yao Dan appeared to be aware of his intentions just as he was planning to free himself to block the group. A crazy and ferocious smile surfaced on Yao Dan's face, after which the Do Qi within his body suddenly became wild and violent. Xiao Yan, thank you very much. Yao Dan turned his head as the Do Qi within his body reached the limit of its untamed violence. He looked at Xiao Yan, who had grabbed Yao Tian, Yao Ling and the rest as he entered the spatial crack. Those crazy scarlet eyes of Yao Dan revealed a smile that seemed to have been relieved of a great burden. After which, an extermination explosion that was not weaker than the 8-colored fire lotus explosion from earlier once again resounded within this blood-covered realm. The frightening extermination storm swept apart within the Yao realm. Other than a small number of extremely powerful individuals, most of those who were struck by it were turned into ashes in an instant. The might from the self-destruction of a 7-star Do Shang could really annihilate the world. This old lunatic. Faced with this extermination storm that spread across the place, those experts from the Hall of Soul, who were originally planning on stopping Xiao Yan's group, had no choice but to quickly withdraw. Even someone as strong as Hun Jing and Hun Yin could only step back and stay low at this moment. The storm continued for a couple of minutes before it gradually weakened. After the extermination ripples disappeared, 100,000 feet large hole appeared on the ground below. The bottom of the hole was completely black. It was as though one could not see the bottom. Such a frightening destructive force caused the eyes of Hun Yin and the others to shrink slightly. Hun Jing's and Hun Yan's eyes immediately turned towards the direction which Xiao Yan's group had fled towards as the storm scattered. However, they merely saw a spatial crack that was slowly being repaired. Xiao Yin and the others had already vanished. Clearly, they had fled from the spatial crack. Damn it! Han Jing's expression was gloomy upon seeing this scene. He let out a soft curse and suddenly grabbed towards the spot where Yao Dan had self-destructed. Immediately, a glow flew over. Finally, it turned into an ancient jade that appeared in his palm. From its appearance, it was something similar to that Tushin ancient god jade in Xiao Yan's hand. It seemed that this was the ancient jade that belonged to the Yao clan. Why have you let that brat flee? Han Huzi's figure also appeared beside Han Jing as he spoke with a sunken expression. Elder Wanhua and the rest had already been completely killed at this moment. The former did not have much ability to resist in front of a 7-star Do Sheng. Han Jing held the ancient jade. He lifted his eyelid and looked at the extremely miserable Han Yin who had headed over. At this moment, green and white intertwined on his face. He did not expect that he had actually been turned into such a miserable state by Xiao Yin even after attacking personally. This brat does indeed have some ability. No wonder he is able to cause our Han clan to suffer losses time and time again. Han Yan's eyes were gloomy. However, he did not shrink from his responsibility. The destructive force that Xiao Yin had unleashed earlier was something that even an ordinary 7-star Do Sheng would not be able to produce. Moreover, from the information that they had obtained, Xiao Yin did not possess such a fighting ability. There was nothing to laugh about him suffering such a loss. We must not allow them to flee successfully. Although we are now no longer afraid of the Gu clan learning of this news, that brat does possess a Shi ancient god jade in his hand. We will be able to save a lot of trouble in the future if we obtain it. Han Huzi said. He had been played by Xiao Yin while he was refining pill earlier. Now, it was only natural that he did not wish to see the latter escape. We should resolve the matter of the Yao clan first. Our mission is to collect the bloodline strength of the Yao clan. As for Xiao Yan's group, humph, how can it be so easy for them to escape? There are still Hun Sha and Hun Tu outside of the Yao clan's realm. Send the news to them. Ask them to dispatch one of them to kill Xiao Yin. Hun Yin spoke coldly. If it is not because the both of them needs to help Nihility Sir to stabilize the spatial seal, it would be impossible for that brat to tear open a spatial crack and flee. Aye. Han Jing also nodded. He glanced at this realm, which was filled with a bloody stench. A cruel smile involuntarily flashed across his eyes as he spoke in a dense voice. With this bloodline strength from the Yao clan, it will be able to extend our Han clan for another 1,000 years. At that time, once our plan succeeds, the clan head will become the first person in thousands of years to step into the Do D class. At that time, the entire Do Chi continent would be under the rule of our Han clan. Even the Gu clan can only grovel at our feet. Originally, this day would have come much earlier. In the end, it was hindered by the Shao clan. Back then, our attack on the Shao clan had caused our clan to suffer quite a serious loss. We have only recovered until our peak after recuperating for so many years. Otherwise, we would not need to be overly afraid of the Gu clan. Han Huzi's tone was ferocious as he said, "Everything is worth it to eliminate the Shao clan. That clan is far too difficult to deal with. If they were to join hands with the Gu clan in the future, it might really be possible for them to threaten our Han clan. We must eliminate them. Moreover, that Xiao Xian, even our clan head at his peak, is afraid of him. We must not allow such an enemy to remain." Han Jing spoke in a deep voice. A frightened expression flashed across his eyes when he mentioned that name. It was as though he had recalled the earth-shaking miserable battle back then. Han Yin took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. His eyes were dark and cold as he looked at the lingering battles still present below. He involuntarily let out a dark and cold smile. Start collecting the bloodline strength. With these bloodline, the clan head might be able to advance another level. At that time, our Hun clan will launch an all-out attack. The space hundreds of kilometers away from the Shinnong mountain range suddenly became distorted. A spatial crack line appeared. Immediately, many miserable-looking figures continued to rush out from it. Everyone only heaved a sigh of relief after landing on the mountain. They had finally escaped from the prison where they would have to die. "Are you all right?" Yao Lao wiped off his cold sweat. Being able to escape from the realm sealed by the Hun clan was considered a miracle. However, he quickly turned his eyes towards Xiao Yin. His expression changed slightly after seeing the injury on the latter's chest. "I'm all right." Xiao Yin clenched his teeth. His hand rubbed over his wound. Wisps of pink flame entered his injuries. Immediately, white smoke was emitted. Traces of black vapor was being forced out from the wound by the purifying demonic Lotus flame. Xiao Yin finally sighed in relief after resolving the eroding qi present within his injury. He stuffed a medicinal pill into his mouth and recuperated for a moment. Only then did he turn his head and looked at the unusually quiet mountain range behind him. No one could have imagined that the realm within this mountain range had already turned into a complete bloodbath with corpses lying all over it. Besides Xiao Yin, those dozen over younger generation of the Yao clan, whom Xiao Yin had rescued from the Yao realm, were kneeling towards the mountain range with expressions that were full of grief. A couple of ladies amongst them had involuntarily cried. Having been constantly living under the protection of the Yao clan all their lives, they had never felt so helpless and hopeless before. Compared to the others, Yao Tian and Yao Ling were a little calmer. Although there was still an endless despair within their eyes, they did not display it on their face. The both of them had matured greatly after experiencing this great change. "Mr. Xiao Yin, there is nothing that we can do to repay this great favor of yours. If there is a change in the future, the Yao clan will definitely repay you with our lives." Yao Tian turned around, cupped his hands tightly towards Xiao Yin, and spoke in a deep voice. Beside him, Yao Ling had also gathered her pretty eyes onto Xiao Yin and bowed slightly. "All of you should continue living. There is no need to repay anything. If it is not because those elders from the Yao clan had sacrificed their lives to fight, no one would be able to escape." Xiao Yin waved his hand. His heart also felt some pity towards the misfortune that had befell Yao Tian's group. From today onwards, Yao Tian was no longer the brightest star of the Yao clan. The latter would be just like him and needed to rely on his own strength. Whether Yao Tian could revive the clan would determine on his own ability. "What should we do next?" Yao Lao sighed and asked. "The Hun clan is far too brutal. There are many chiefs and elders from the various sects on the Central Plains who had been killed by them this time around. If news of this spread, the Hun clan will definitely become the common enemy of everyone. However, these factions are just like ants from the perspective of the Hun clan, and they will have difficulty catching its attention." Xiao Yin revealed an expression of deep thought. A moment later, he said, "We must head to the Gu clan. Currently, the only one able to fight with the Hun clan is the Gu clan. They will definitely not stand idly and watch after such a thing had happened. At that time, only by combining with the Yin and Lei clan will it be possible to restrain the Hun clan. Otherwise, the other ancient clans will also have difficulty escaping this great calamity." From the way the Hun clan was able to easily eliminate the Yao clan, even the Yin and Lei clan would likely end up with the same fate. Of course, the Sky Mansion Alliance would likely end up with an even more miserable fate. In terms of foundation, the alliance still had some gap when compared with these ancient clans. Xiao Yin had never believed that the Hun clan would let the Sky Mansion Alliance off. Hence, he must think of a solution as soon as possible. Otherwise, when the Hun clan attacks the alliance, the result would not be any better than the scene today. "Teacher, you should first return to the alliance and make arrangement. Raise the defense level to its highest. Those that need to be shifted should proceed secretly. Tell everyone to be cautious." Yao Lao hesitated upon hearing this. Finally, he nodded. Given his strength, he would not be able to provide Xiao Yin with much of a help by following the ladder. Instead, he would only be a burden. The Shinong mountain range is not longer safe. I shall accompany you to the Sky Mansion Alliance. I heard that old demon from the Pill Tower is also there. It has been many years since I have seen him. I really wish to meet him. Old man Shinong hesitated for a moment before speaking. The Hun clan was also targeting him. If he continued to remain alone, he would really be unlucky if the Hun clan was to discover his trail. Xiao Yin was also startled upon hearing these words. He immediately rejoiced. This old man Shinong was not only a 6-star dosheng, but his alchemist skills was something that few could match. If he could stay at the Alliance, the strength of the Alliance would soar greatly. Xiao Yin was naturally happy to see such a situation. Yao Tian, both you and your sister should head with me to the Gu clan. The both of you will need to explain the matter of the Yao clan in order for those elders from the Gu clan to believe. The remaining people should head to the Sky Mansion Alliance first. What do you say? Xiao Yin looked towards Yao Tian and Yao Ling and asked. We will listen to Mr. Xiao Yan's orders. Yao Tian and Yao Ling exchanged glances before nodding their heads. Although Xiao Yin was not very old, they clearly understood in their hearts that there was indeed an extremely great gap between them and Xiao Yin. In that case, let's get going. Xiao Yin sighed softly. His internal injuries had been significantly recovered during this short period of time. His voice had just sounded when his expression suddenly changed. He turned his head abruptly and looked at a mountain a short distance away. There was a figure carrying a huge dark red ghost blade on his shoulder leaning on a huge tree. Those savage red eyes appeared just like a bloody sea. Ugh, have I been discovered? A ferocious smile rose on that figure's face after he detected Xiao Yan's gaze. An evil aura suddenly soared.